I had no interest in reading growing up, so I never read the Hunger Games trilogy, but of course I've seen all of the movies, and I read the prequel during my 24-hour readathon. This will be a full spoiler reading vlog on this trilogy because I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that most people know the story of the Hunger Games. I'm going to attempt to read this whole trilogy in one weekend, so I better go get started. I just made it to part 2 of the book. One of the things that's really sticking out to me is how often Katniss's dad is brought up. I don't really remember him being mentioned all that much in the movies, but I feel like he's been brought up a lot, and there's been flashbacks of him teaching Katniss how to hunt, and there's a big focus on Katniss's childhood, which I think is sort of lost in the movie. I also wonder what my feelings would be towards trigger warning Gale if I didn't know he was the Prim Reaper. Because at this moment, he hasn't really been a bad guy. I'm not saying I'm Team Gale, by the way. I'm just thinking, if I went into this without any prior knowledge about what happens in the series, would I like him? I know he becomes this little pest that gets in the way of Katniss and Peeta, and he's the Prim Reaper, but he hasn't done that yet. Of course, I can't time travel, and I can never be a stan of Gale, but I wonder, okay, are there Gale stans out there? Also, Rue has been mentioned more in the first part of this book than she was mentioned in the first part of the movie. I feel like she wasn't really relevant before the games in the movie, but she's been talked about quite a bit in here. I just feel like the similarities between Prim and Rue have been brought up several times in here. And maybe it happened in the movie and it went over my head, but I don't think so. Since I read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes first, I'm noticing some things in here that I don't think I would have noticed before. Like the fact that there's one other winner from District 12 that's not Haymitch. Did Suzanne Collins know when she was writing this book that she might want to write a prequel one day, so she'd add that in there? I've learned so much lore and so many theories about these books on Twitter that it's making me second guess things. Also, when these movies originally came out, I was in elementary school and I always saw Katniss as being so much older than me. I used to think, they're 16, that is so old, they're adults fighting. But now I'm 20 reading this thinking, I would never survive at 16. I mean, I turned 16 in 2020, which was quite the year. And it just makes me think that Katniss and a lot of the characters in this book are the same age as I was when I was taping One Direction posters to my ceiling. It's just so weird because all of these kids, their babies, are just gonna go kill each other. And I think when I watched the movies for the first time, I just saw everyone as older than me, so I don't think I even comprehended that everyone was supposed to be under 18. And I think it's so much scarier thinking that these are kids fighting against each other. Anyway, the part I'm at is when Peeta's like, even if I win, I'm not gonna get the girl I want because she came here with me. This little boy is starting so much drama. Peeta is just very calculated, and I'm here for it. Start that drama. I can't wait. This is why he made it onto the shirt, because he eats every time. Haymitch, on the other hand, is being a total poopy head right now, which I understand. He's trying to drown his trauma in alcohol, but he's not helping these kids out by doing that. But I have to say, he is an icon. Same with this little fella right here. He did it for the plot, okay? We would not have the Hunger Games if it weren't for him. Anyway, I'm gonna keep reading and giving you all of my thoughts on this silly little book. It's not silly. Kids are dying. I just read something really sad, so I'm gonna read it for you. Alright, so it's the night before the games start. Peeta and Katniss are talking to each other because neither of them can sleep. And Peeta says, I don't know how to say it exactly, only I want to die as myself. Does that make any sense? Yeah, it's a shake my head, blah, 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 blah. I don't want them to change me in there, turn me into some kind of monster that I'm not. This is so sad. It's coming from a teenager. I just can't even imagine being a tribute and going into that arena being like, this is probably my last day. Katniss starts asking are you gonna kill people? And he's like, yeah, I'll probably end up killing people. And then he says, only I keep wishing I could think of a way to show the Capitol they don't own me, that I'm more than just a piece in their games. So true, bestie. So then Katniss is like, but you're not. None of us are. That's how the game works. He's like, blah, 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 blah. But within that framework, there's still you. There's still me. Don't you see? And she's like, no offense, but who cares, Peeta? I would not fall in love with someone that said that. He said, I do. I mean, what else am I allowed to care about at this point? He is such a sweetheart. She is so cool. She just says, care about what Haymitch says about staying alive. And then Peeta smiles at me sad and mocking. Okay, thanks for the tip, sweetheart. And then Katniss is thinking, it's like a slap in the face. Katniss deserved that, okay? This is crazy. So basically the arenas become historic sites for people to visit after the games. People will vacation to arenas and reenact the games. I mean, if I could visit an arena, I would, but it's because it's fiction and I know it's not real. If I knew that people actually died there, that would freak me out. Why would anyone go there? I spoke too soon. She said, maybe it's better if he's gone already. I just made it to part 3, the victor. I didn't realize how much Katniss hated Peeta. Like, I knew she didn't approve with who he aligned with, but I didn't realize she wanted him dead. Of course, that's until he saves her life, and then all of a sudden she's like, oh, Peeta. And she's like, oh, he's just putting on an act. He doesn't love me. And then Rue's like, girl, what you talking about? So, of course, we all know this. Rue dies. Now, here's the thing. Death does not always make me emotional. What gets me is how people grieve and reactions to death. That kills me. I was doing fine until District 11 sent her bread. I'm gonna cry thinking about it. They sent her bread! And she just assumes it was meant for Rue, but we all know they didn't send it for Rue, they sent it for Katniss. And then the thought of her grieving and having to continue on without Rue was so sad, because she's just like, I gotta do this to survive. I need to do this to survive. And that's so sad how she has to like manually think how to survive. She can't just do it on her own because she's too focused on grieving. So my goal is to read a book a day, and it is currently 9:30 and I have 127 pages left. That being said, I better keep going. I finished this last night and we have so much to talk about. I really love the part when Thresh saves Katniss. It was at a moment when Katniss was very vulnerable and he could have killed her so easily, but then he finds out what she did for Rue and he's just like, I loved Rue. I'm gonna save you this one time. Rest in peace, baby girl. I just thought that was a very powerful scene, and I really liked how then Katniss was like, oh, if we don't win, I really hope Thresh wins, and then she's sad when Thresh dies, but at the same time she didn't want to kill him, so she's like relieved that someone else killed him. I also didn't realize how much of a role music plays in like Katniss's relationship with her dad. I feel like that kind of gets lost in the movie, how powerful music is in her life, which of course connects to the story of Lucy Gray Baird. That story adds so much more meaning to this, and I just think that's really cool. Also, I did not expect Peeta to get a new leg. I don't know, that really threw me off when he like had to lose his leg. I was like, what? Cato's death also caught me off guard. I think what's so upsetting is that he was getting mauled for hours on end and had to just stay alive and be there, and then he wanted Katniss to put him out of his misery, and that was also so heartbreaking to read. Of course he was gonna die, but I just felt really bad because I feel like other people got to die really quickly and he had to just be there for hours and hours and hours, and then he was finally like, please kill me. Another thing is I find the whole story surrounding Snow to be so intriguing, and reading Katniss compare his eyes to Snake Eyes, absolutely insane, and I love it. He's obviously the villain, and I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh my gosh, I love Snow, because I don't, but I just find him very interesting. I find his whole storyline and the way he thinks as something very interesting. I also think Haymitch kind of redeemed himself and decided to slay at the end. Now it's time to talk about the love. When specifically looking at this story, ignoring everything that happens in like Catching Fire and Mockingjay, I feel a little bit bad for Gale. Because absolutely no one wants him to be with Katniss. Because there's no way anyone could ever want Katniss to end up with Gale. Like, Peeta is just there and Peeta's the one. You can tell. There's just way more chemistry between Katniss and Peeta, and I just feel bad for Gale because he just has to watch his girl, basically. I mean, not really his girl. They're not really dating, but like at the same time, someone he's very obviously in love with kiss another dude and be like, I love you, Peeta. Like, I just can't even imagine watching that. That's insane. And then I also feel bad for Peeta because he is obviously so in love with Katniss, and she doesn't feel the same way. I think Peeta would have no problem saying I love you to Katniss, but she's just like, I'm glad you didn't die. I didn't want you to die, but I don't love you. It appears to me she's in touch with her feelings and really does just see Peeta as a friend, which obviously that changes, but at this point I think it was just like, she doesn't want her friend to die. This is her only friend right now. He's going through the same thing she is. Obviously, they're gonna get close. Which I remember feeling this way after watching the first movie as well. I was just like, she does not love him, and it's kind of obvious, but at the same time, you're just like, Katniss and Peeta together makes sense. Anyway, now it's time to read book 2, Catching Fire. I do want to try to get this done before I go to bed, but I also have stuff to do today. Wish me luck. She said, thank you for your children. I'm on part 2, The Quell. The beginning of this book feels slow, and I think it's because I already know like what happens in these 75th Hunger Games, but like our characters don't know anything about it yet. And like, I'm just patiently waiting for the games to happen. Which I saw a whole bunch of people on Twitter being like, stop asking for Finnick's original game, stop asking for Haymitch's original game. You're just like the people of the Capitol, you just want to see more Hunger Games. And to that, I have to say, it is fiction. It is totally different than being a real life person being like, yeah, kill kids. If you want another Hunger Games book, it is completely fine because no one is actually getting hurt in the Hunger Games. Anyway, the lake and like the cabin on the lake has been brought up a couple of times in this book. And like Gale and Katniss go to the cabin. Is that the same cabin as in the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes? Now I believe in all the conspiracy theories that Katniss's dad is actually related to Maude Ivory. Well, I've actually seen more theories about her mom being related, but that doesn't make sense to me because these books keep saying like all the songs are related to the dad and how the cabin was the dad's. And I don't understand why everyone assumes that the mom is related to Maude Ivory, but I find it really interesting that Katniss plans on running away with Gale and Peeta and all their family and stuff because it reminds me of Lucy Gray Baird. I'm just loving all these connections. But another thing I wanted to talk about is like Katniss' speech in like District 11. It just makes me so sad to think about like Rue's family and that whole thing. Also, I am so excited to meet Finnick. So I know this is Billy Dunn and not Finnick, but it's played by the same actor, okay? And of course I would have Billy Dunn framed. What? He's so baby girl. I am a Sam Claflin stan, and I cannot wait to read about Finnick and be imagining Sam. Anyways, I'm gonna keep reading, but I need to change rooms because it is 60 degrees in here. And that's just a little bit too cold for me. I've been avoiding changing rooms because our futon is broken and we don't have any other seats in there, but I can't take it any longer. It's too cold in here. So my room is really cold, but my bed is really warm. So I fell asleep. But I just made it to part 3, The Enemy. Well, Senna just died. And Katniss just entered the arena and is surrounded by water. And she's like, the girl on fire, surrounded by things that distinguish... What did she say? This is no place for a girl on fire. Because she's surrounded by water. So many iconic things happened in part 2. There's Peeta being like, if it weren't for the baby... But before that, we get to meet Finnick and of course fall in love with Finnick. Even though Katniss is like not all that impressed with him, she just doesn't want to be like most girls. And she's like, everyone's in love with him, but not me. Yeah, I'm in love with him. Then something they cut from the movies was Katniss and Peeta watched Haymitch's Hunger Games. I really enjoyed reading about his games and how he won and everything surrounding that. I'm kind of sad that it was cut out of the movie, and I would totally want to see a movie of just Haymitch's game. I feel like I've seen so many people ask for Haymitch's games as like a movie, and I was kind of like, oh, like that'd be cool, but I'm not like dying to see it. But after reading that, I'm like, oh wait, I would totally watch that. Something that I find interesting is that the 75th Hunger Games is only this much of the book. Like, she's only just now getting to the arena and we're on part 3. I mean, there's so much politics in here that are very important, but I just assumed the games took up more space than that. I think the 75th Games arena has to be my favorite setting because I just love all the water and everything that happens there, and it was just so pretty to look at. Like, sometimes I just think, wouldn't it be fun to go in the arena? No, like, it wouldn't. Obviously it wouldn't, but like, it would, right? Like, I just want to go there. I want to go to the arena. Oh my gosh, I'm no better than the Capitol people. But it's different because it's fiction. But wouldn't it be fun just like being able to like walk around and be like, this happened here. This happened there. This happened there. And this happened there. You know, like I feel like that'd be fun. Anyway, now it's time to read about Finnick. So I'm gonna go do that. I finished Catching Fire last night, and now it just goes downhill from here. I did a poll on YouTube asking which Hunger Games book is people's favorites. 31% said The Hunger Games, 45% said Catching Fire, 5% said Mockingjay, and 19% said The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Now, so much happened in the last third of this book, so let's talk about it. First things first, rest in peace, Mags. Mags is just a sweetheart that volunteered to go in the games so that Annie didn't have to. She knew she had no shot in surviving and went into the games anyway, then sacrificed herself for Katniss, Peeta, and Finnick. Katniss sees that Finnick is all glassy-eyed and has puffy eyes, and she decides not to mention it, and I just feel so sad for Finnick. Mags was his mentor and one of the only people he trusted. I love Finnick so much. I feel like in the book, Katniss is questioning Finnick's every move, and I didn't really notice that as much in the movie. She for sure knows something's up because everyone's just protecting her, and she's like, why? I mean, I think that's easier to get across in a book because in a movie, you'd have to voice over her thoughts, and they didn't do that. Now let's talk about love. Peeta's love for Katniss makes me weak in the knees. He is so obviously head over heels for her, and we finally see her reciprocate the love because she tells Peeta, I need you. And Peeta's all like, I will die for you, Katniss. Look at this locket that has a picture of Gale, your mom, and Prim in it. Because he will die for her, and he wants her to be happy, so if that means marrying Gale, he'll be okay with it. Back in the day when I used to dance, we danced to a song from the Catching Fire soundtrack, and I just think that's so iconic. It makes me giggle thinking about my dance teachers watching the Hunger Games and thinking, that would be a good dance. I'm not excited to read Mockingjay. I'm not ready to leave this world yet, and I know all the heartbreak that's gonna happen, and I don't think my heart can handle it. I do need to get through this, so I guess I'll reluctantly start now. Well, that was sullen. I'm on part 2, the assaults. Finnick is just broken. He's not acting like himself, and he's so worried for Annie, and I'm really dreading how that story ends. And then there's Peeta and the Capitol being brainwashed and tortured, and Katniss can't even do anything about it. I feel bad for Katniss because she really can't trust anyone at this moment. She's not gonna side with the Capitol, and she can tell that there's something going on in District 13 that's a little shady. So what does she do? She sings Icon! I mean, it's such an iconic song, and like reading the lyrics, I was like, well, here I am singing. I think the downfall of Gale is really starting. Gale and Katniss are starting to disagree on things, and you can tell that Katniss is starting to not trust Gale as much as she used to, which is unfortunate when you think about the fact that they've been friends for so long. But we all know Gale's not a good person, so. But it was bound to happen. I don't know if before this book there were a whole bunch of Gale stans out there, but I feel like Suzanne really had to be like, you don't want her to end up with Gale, you want her to end up with Peeta, so I need to really villainize him. I'm getting kind of sick of Gale at this point, though. He's kind of annoying. Get him out of here. Anyway, almost done. Gotta keep going. I've just made it to part 3, The Assassin, which is the last part of the whole series. Oh, I just know I'm gonna cry. This book has just made me so sad, and I know I'm about to like reach like the saddest part in the whole entire series, and I don't know if I'm ready for it. So Finnick reveals what President Snow did to him / made him do, But it makes me somehow love Finnick more because I'm just like, he went through all of that and still is this amazing person. And he marries Annie. I'm not ready. He is so sweet to Annie. And PETA is upsetting me because I know he's brainwashed or hijacked, whatever they call it. But he wanted to kill Katniss, whereas before he was willing to die for Katniss. But of course, Prim tells Katniss, don't give up on him. Like, I believe in PETA. Like, he's gonna pull through. And then we have Gale, just wanting to kill innocent people. Gale is just as bad as the Capitol. He doesn't even want to give innocent people the option to survive at the Nut. So at this point, he's on the opposite side of Snow, but he is opposing the villain whilst also being a villain. I think this story is so interesting because the people that are supposed to be heroes can also be immoral. And it's like, yippee, there's good guys and bad guys, but then you're like, wait, are the good guys also bad guys? I just know I'm gonna be so upset reading this next part. But I'm gonna go for it. Okay, here I go. Some of you guys are terrible people. So I finished the series. Kind of swaggy that I read it all in one weekend. And I'm sad. What do I do now? Obviously, Finnick died. And in the book, I feel like no one really has all that much time to grieve specifically for him. So I took one for the team. And it makes me sad to think that he had a child after he died. Stop, I'm gonna cry again. Stop. Makes me sad to think his kid's gonna grow up without a father. I know it's supposed to be like a happy thing that Annie ended up having his kid. I can't say it without crying. I'm torn up, man. I really enjoyed reading about Tigress. She's such an interesting character, especially after reading The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Seeing her go from loving Snow no matter what to realizing that he's evil to then going against him was very powerful. If we're being honest, I got sick of Gale even before the Prim Reaper thing. I think Suzanne wanted us to believe that he was still somewhat a good person, but good people don't make bombs like that. This is kind of me realizing I haven't rated a single one of these books. And I don't know, I think they're unofficial 5 stars. I feel like I just can't. I cried this much, so it has to be a 5-star read, right? I think all these books have such like 5-star potential, but I don't know if I love this ending. I would give this world and these characters 5 stars, but I don't know if I would give this ending 5 stars. Because I just feel sad. I'm not super happy being like, oh my gosh, that's the best series I ever read. I think I'm honestly just gonna leave it unrated because I don't know. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like, comment, and subscribe, I would very much appreciate it. I'm gonna go cry myself to sleep, but I hope I see you soon. Bye!